So I was able to interview Mike Mongo. He is training to go to space right now. He was one of the lucky 5 selected to be part of the Space Plus 5 crew for an upcoming Blue Origin mission. And while I was at the Kennedy Space Center, I also ran into a woman, the first Egyptian astronaut that launched into space just last month in August. So this will be an interesting video because we get to hear the perspective of someone who's about to go to space. This has been Mike's lifelong dream, and he's making it happen at 57 years old in a very unexpected way. And also the story of this first Egyptian astronaut. She too had a very interesting way with how she got this opportunity, but hope you enjoy this video. There have only been some 600 people in space. That is bonkers considering there are closer to 8 billion people in the world right now. I was lucky enough to meet one young woman who just went last month. Sarah Sabri is the first Egyptian astronaut, the first Arab woman in space, and the first woman from the African continent to go to space. She also just completed the International Institute of Astronautical Sciences Project Possum program, and I'll tell you more about that in another video, but this helped her become the first female Egyptian scientist astronaut candidate. Sarah was selected by Space for Humanity for her leadership experience and potential for global impact among thousands of qualified applicants around the world. She flew to space on Blue Origin's 6th human spaceflight on August 4th last month.
Now I am an astronaut. I am the first Egyptian astronaut and the first woman, first Arab woman, and for the first African woman to go to space.
Oh my gosh, and this was just last month?
Yes, it was on August 4th with New Shepard.
And how was it?
It was incredible. It was the most profound experience that I've ever had. It's really life-changing, and it's, you hear about the overview effect a lot, you read about it, you kind of listen to astronauts talk about it, but until you really experience it, then you'll know what it's going to be really like for you. And it's a journey, it's a process to actually process.
Yeah, I mean, you must think about it every day.
Yes, I do. I kind of just daydream about it. You keep thinking about it all the time, and it's really powerful.
How did you even get into this and get this opportunity?
So I applied to Space for Humanity. It's a nonprofit company that aims to democratize access to space, and they select astronauts based on their leadership capabilities and potential for global impact. And they selected me out of 3,000 to 7,000 applicants from all over the world to go to space, to experience the overview effect, and to use it to change life on Earth.
Why do you think you were selected?
I think so because of the work that I do with my company, Deep Space Initiative. We're also a nonprofit company. We're trying to bring more access and more opportunity in the space field through research opportunities, through education, and through this work, I guess, kind of like that brought to it. And also, the fact that I would be the first Egyptian to ever go to space would have a really big impact in Egypt and in the African continent.
Wow, it's crazy. Your friend that we just met, he probably won't get an opportunity to go into space for almost 2 decades, right?
Probably. It
Like,
might be, I'm
Maybe
hoping for
sooner.
But
Maybe sooner.
is that just crazy, like how quick the process was for you to get on a rocket?
It was insane, and I found out I was going to space 2 weeks before actually going.
No.
So yeah, it literally flipped my whole world upside down. I had to, accept it and go through the whole, phases of this news that you're getting, because it's something that you want and it's something that you work so hard for. And then when you get the news, it's just such an overwhelming feeling, and your body finds difficulty kind of making sense of it.
Oh my gosh, were you scared?
No, I was not scared.
You weren't scared? I'd be scared. Like,
No.
you had a lot of trust in it, in the faith.
Yes, I did. I think of course, you're always told that being on a rocket is not without risk. So you have to make peace with whatever outcome that comes. And also with Space for Humanity, they did such a great job putting us in touch with a company called Paragon, where they prepare us both before going to space and then after. So before going to space, they kind of prepare us mentally to go through the process, to visualize yourself on this capsule chair, and right before launch, right before liftoff, like what you want to feel. And I was honestly, when I was sitting on that chair right before launch and before the engine ignited, I was very calm. I was not nervous. I was not scared. I felt like I wasn't going alone. I felt like I was taking the whole of Egypt with me. And I felt very much at peace and trusting of the vehicle, and was honestly okay with whatever outcome that comes. So I think that also changes you, going through that and knowing that, anything could happen. It's really kind of changes you a little bit.
Well, no one makes it out alive anyway, right? So
yeah, exactly. So might as well do it. I mean, if you die doing what you love, isn't that the dream?
Yeah. So how much are you wanting to go back?
Ever since I had a little bit of a taste for it, every cell in my body has been pulling me to go back. I think I've made this new connection with the universe, and I think my journey to the space field started from this curiosity, from wanting to understand the origin of, the universe and all that. So actually going and having experienced a little bit of it, now I cannot wait to go back there and kind of help humanity forward in that aspect and push humanity to the edge of space.
Wow, that's insane that you had 2 weeks to mentally really prepare. Holy shit. Who else went with you?
So I went with 5 other crew members. I went with Steve Young. He's a businessman from Florida. Mario Ferreira, I think I'm pronouncing his family name wrong. He's Portuguese. He's the first Portuguese in space. Vanessa O'Brien. She's the first woman to complete the Explorer's Trifecta, so deepest in the ocean. So she did the Mariana Trench, highest on land, and now space. Clint Kelly. He's a professor and one of the first people to work on automated vehicles. And Kobe Cotton, he's a famous YouTuber. He's from Dude Perfect. He's one of the founders of Dude Perfect.
Wow, that's crazy. And you guys are bonded for life, right?
Yes. No, they're my family.
Have you been interviewed a lot, since then, by a bunch of people, or?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Has it been nonstop?
No, actually, it's been pretty calm. I've been doing this training with Project Possum, so it's another astronaut training. So it's to potentially do more research in space. So I'm continuing my astronaut training journey and doing my PhD in aerospace and working on spacesuits along with my company, Deep Space Initiative. So there's a lot of things going on. So I need to kind of balance both together.
I also met a man who's now training to go to space. Educator Mike Mongo is one of the Space Plus 5. He will be trained for an upcoming flight on the Blue Origin New Shepard rocket along with 4 others. So how did he get his seat on Space Plus 5? Well, believe it or not, through buying a space NFT. Remember when I made that video telling you that space companies were trying to get into the NFT game? Yeah, I know a lot of you aren't fans, but look, it worked out for Mike. He bought an Uplift Aerospace NFT and by crazy chances got a seat, even though there was originally only 1 seat up for grabs. When the application process resulted in not 1 but 5 extraordinary astronaut seat finalists, Uplift Aerospace decided to bring all 5 on board to train as the first commercial astronaut class, the Space Plus 5. You have written an instruction manual for astronauts, but now you're actually going to be doing that.
That's correct. Yeah, I wrote the Astronaut Instruction Manual. It's a book for students, young students, and then that was several years ago. It's being turned into a television series now, and about the first kids in space. And meanwhile, as I work to encourage students to pursue careers in space, and I've become deeply invested in space culture and the space industry, had the opportunity, brought to me by Dr. Simon Proctor, to apply for a role on a commercial crew. Mm-hmm. I didn't know it at the time there was going to be a commercial crew. It was for 1 seat, and it expanded because the way the 5 finalists, the manner in which we engage with one another. Wow. We had a chemistry. We have a chemistry. And so then Uplift Aerospace made the call. We're going to have a commercial crew, and we're choosing all 5 of you. So now they've contracted the 1 seat with Blue Origin. We're training for a Blue Origin mission, and they are having contracts or negotiations or discussions with Blue Origin is the right way to put it. It's tricky, these words, because have to be respectful of Blue Origin, have to be respectful of the seat that's already been procured, and there's specific and guidelines about discussing these things.
So are you in the first commercial crew?
I am. The specifics of our mission are we are escorting a historic passenger, and you know, Sarah would be a historic passenger, obviously, as the first person from Egypt to go to space, and we have a parallel in that we have a famous first flying with us.
A famous first.
Yes. And I mean, on top of that, you know, and again, we're training for this mission. They're working on procuring the seats right now. So, like, again, the language is really important out of respect for Blue Origin. And there's Ruben Salinas, who has the first seat. He's a medical technologist out of Texas. There is Sydney Hamilton. She is a rocket scientist with Lockheed. There is Joan Melendez-Meisner. She's here at Kennedy Space Center with NASA, and she's a rocket engineer. And then there is Trent Tresh, who is the director of human spaceflight training at University of Arizona.
And then you.
And me.
And you. So when did you find out that you'd won the lottery, essentially?
It's funny because it really wasn't a lottery, and you know, we walked in and someone mentioned that you won the golden ticket or something like that, and the application process was sort of traditional. However, it was initiated with an NFT purchase. So so the people who applied in that's a good question. Maybe June, maybe May.
Of this year?
Yes.
Oh, so this is like fairly new for you.
The announcement was in June. Yes.
And you haven't even gone to space yet, and you've just been like
That's right.
busy nonstop already.
Since the announcement.
What's that like?
It's interviews all day long, every day.
Why do so many... Explain why you think everyone wants to talk to you.
Ellie, the one thing I know about you is that you love space. And so I think that there's a whole civilization of us that feel the exact same way. And right now, currently, there's only been 600 people who have been to space. And so I'm one step closer to being one of those people. And that speaks to everyone. There are really two groups of people. There's people that don't have any interest in going to space, bless them, and then there are the rest of us.
Yeah. Wow.
And so people want to know. And also, when I got selected, I had some really good friends called Nicole Stott, Chris Zembrowski, Cyan, of course. And one of the things that Chris said to me, and this is before the announcement, and I was like, wait, this is great. Like, how did you know? And they're sort of like this astronaut grapevine. And he said, I just wanted to call, and I was in New York, and I was walking through Times Square at that moment, and it was in the evening, and I just wanted to say this to you. I want you to pay attention, like, be in the moment and enjoy the process, because it happens so fast. And then before you know it, you're back.
I have like goosebumps already just like hearing that.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And it has made such a difference, because it makes me focus in the morning. Not like focus, not like laser hone, but be present. And then every night before bed, I regain that presence before I climb to bed. Every single night. And then I go over what I accomplished today, what I got to experience today. It just fills me with gratitude. I don't have to be intentional about it. It just shows up.
When are you scheduled to go?
Well, we don't talk about the launch dates until 30 days before the launch.
Oh.
And again, I'd like to say that, you know, like, we have an idea, like, we have the one seat, we know when that is, and then they're working on the other 4 right now.
Okay.
I am going to continue to stress that, because I have had training on this topic. Yes.
Wow. My gosh. Before I forget, people are going to ask about the glasses. Give your spiel on the upside down glasses.
My spiel is that when you asked me when we met in Cocoa Beach, I said the bow tie had already been taken, with a nod to Bill Nye, and really that's what it is. It's simply to let people know I have something to say that's worth hearing. That's it.
And just to remind people, don't try that at home.
All right, yeah, they're custom made, so the lenses are switched out, like
Yeah.
prescription, they don't work flipped.
Right. Have you always been like team space, and this is just like your lifelong dream?
I was 4 when Neil Armstrong walked on the moon, and the year before that, I was 3, and I was a Batman fan, and I had been asked what I wanted to be when I grew up, which is really, in hindsight, though I remember it so clearly, in hindsight, why do we ask 3-year-olds what they want to be? And we as grown-ups ask these kind of questions of children, and I know the answer now, as an astronaut teacher for 15 years and having students train me to be this version of myself, it is because we kind of don't pay attention to people who are kids or students. We play it by ear and we wing it, and we don't have an intelligent question, or we don't give them the credit that they may have an intelligent answer. And so students have trained me not to ask what they want to be when they grow up. When I answered when I was 3 was a superhero. I want to be Batman. And then the person they laughed. They're like, there's no such thing as superheroes. And I was like offended, really. Of course there's superheroes. I watched Batman like it was on television. There is a Batman as a 3-year-old. And then I was 4 when Neil Armstrong walked on the moon, and I asked, is astronaut a real thing? And yeah, they nodded, yeah, astronaut is a real thing. I said, okay, that's what I'm gonna be. And so then I went and, I did have my whole life. I was 42 when I chose to be an astronaut teacher. The reason I chose it is because in 2007, we did not have any private space industry. Virgin Galactic was like a whisper, and there was no SpaceX, no Blue Origin, there was nothing like that.
Yeah.
And NASA was the only game in town, and so I, at 42, realizing the only thing I had not accomplished in my life was astronaut, the thing that I'd wanted to be longer than almost anything, was now outside of my reach. Because if at 42 in 2007 you're not an astronaut, guess what? You're probably not going to get to be an astronaut, except that the future happened.
Yeah.
We have the private space industry. We retired the shuttle. George Bush retired the shuttle. President Obama created the private space program, funded that, and then here we are, only 15 years later, and opportunities like this are showing up. And then, with SpaceX and the Starship that's about to happen, we're going to be able to put 100 people in space at a time, plus 100 tons, which is going to allow us to build infrastructure for space commerce and manufacturing and facilities and all kinds of amazing things in the next 5 years, in a short period of time, way before Artemis.
Right.
The Artemis mission to the moon. Yeah.
Well, and let's also remind people that not all NFTs are garbage.
Oh, right. Yeah. There are it's funny because I remember this exact same experience, being 57, people would tell me that in 83, when I was buying hip hop, the people at the record store would just scorn me that this is boo-boo garbage. Why are you buying this trash? And this is just a trend. That was hip hop.
Yeah.
Right? And now it has supplanted or replaced rock, so to speak, or at least it's a peer. And these kind of technologies, the internet. When the internet started, I was there for that. I got to work on the internet when it was called ARPANET, and the mainframes and the different computers we would access, no one had any idea, but there was discussions happening that it was going to turn into what it is now. And then when it became in the 90s, when it started to trend, people still didn't understand it. They just called it a novelty or a lark. And if you look back in time, that's what we said about the Industrial Revolution. That's what we said about cars. That's what we said about the train. Every time that a significant breakthrough happens, right to the front, the naysayers run and say, no, it's the harbinger of doom. And Buckminster Fuller was the one that described something called precession. And that's when we invent something that in the beginning we don't use it appropriately, or it doesn't function as it will eventually. And that is how he came up with that when he was describing, when he was talking about selling the rights to geodesic domes. You know those domes that you have on a playground that are made with triangles and it turns and we climb on them? There's a person who invented them. Buckminster Fuller. Like we just think of him as a natural form and shape, but that's not how it was. And so he sold the rights to that to the U.S. Army and got all kinds of criticism. Like this noted thinker got all this criticism for selling this invention, this work resource to the U.S. Army. And he described precession. Let's look at airplanes. Now that you've got me warmed up to the subject, airplanes. The very first public showing of an airplane was in 1908 in Le Mans, and 3 weeks before that, Thomas Selfridge with the U.S. Army in Fort Myers flew with the Wright brothers and crashed and died. 3 weeks before the first public display of an airplane. Now, if we had decided right then that we're not going to use airplanes as a bad thing, where would we be? And the same thing, like with these devices. Yeah. Like again, same thing. Like we always thought it was like, why do we need a mobile phone? Like I can just call it home.
Yeah.
How many lives have these saved?
Oh my gosh, can you imagine being without it?
I mean, how many lives on a daily basis do these save?
Absolutely.
And it's probably millions. Probably on a planet of 8 billion people, there's almost certainly millions of people daily are saved by this device. Now, the interesting thing about this device is that so much of it comes from space, from development in space, from space research, from space industry. The glass, Gorilla Glass, the GPS, of course. The solid state circuitry came from microcircuitry we developed for the space industry. The recyclable battery. Like imagine where we would be today, like where we're headed, and what this is not a convenience.
Right.
It is a necessity, and lends itself to sustainability.
And you really believe tomorrow's jobs are in space?
I don't believe it. It's how it is. Yeah, I don't have to charge it with my passion. Like yes, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. I'm well past that. Like we're at that place where tomorrow's jobs are in space. I'm going to Scotland next week to visit with the Saxford Spaceport. I do work with them. We do the astronaut job camp there every year. And I'm going to the Braemar Summit representing the spaceport there. And in Scotland, which is largely rural and a terrific society, a great nation, most people don't realize that the only place on the planet that makes more satellites than Scotland is California. Like nobody would know that. That has such a massive impact on the economy of Scotland and the influence of Scotland in the rest of the world. And then also having a place like of relevance in the future. And that's what's available to us. It's that the Saxford Spaceport. Saxford Spaceport is built in Unst, Scotland, in Shetland. It's a smallish island. It's the northerlymost point of the UK. It is closer to Norway than it is to mainland Scotland. And the launch site, when it's not being used, has sheep on it. It's where sheep are led to eat and live. And they have figured out a way to synthesize nature and the future. If that doesn't sound like everything that we're working on, I don't know what does. Saxford is iconic for that for me. Like that's why I love to champion that particular spaceport, because like look what is possible. Like this is what the future can look like: sustainable, abundant.
Can you tell us about some of the training that you've been through so far?
Sure. Most of the training I've been through right up to date has been emotional training, interpersonal. Those are communication training in dealing with. We all have issues. We all have challenges. We all have experiences, histories, stories, And one of my friends and trainers, Loretta Whiteside, who is the founder of Yuri's Night and founder of Spacekind, put on the Spacekind training, which is about bringing the best version of ourselves to space. And she has been amazing. She's been a terrific ally. I've worked with her for several years. And so I was prepared when this opportunity showed up to just leap and go for it.
So explain, I mean, just, yeah, why do you want to go to space? What do you hope for personal reasons and for, I'm sure you want to inspire the next generation?
Oh, absolutely. As an astronaut teacher and with all the thousands of students I've had the opportunity to work with, and to then epitomize the message I've been giving and sharing with them over the years, that they can do, if they just declare it and pursue it, they will achieve it. And that's one. And on a personal level, I became an astronaut teacher because at 42, I didn't think I was going to get to go to space. And I'm 57 and I'm getting to go. So that's like a I don't know if a check mark on that list is what that is, but it's been a lifelong goal and objective, and here we are in the future. And then I'd say that supersedes all of that on a personal level is to see the Earth, Gaia, from space. Mm-hmm. And because it is my conjecture that the planet itself is a life form that we could call planets as alive as our planet is, and Earth. We could call it an Earth. And we have a name for our Earth, and that is Gaia. And then we see planets like Mars, which are clearly not alive. I mean, like, I know we're struggling to find mitochondria and bacteria and whatever, and that's terrific, but it's not the same. It will never be the same. And what we have here is amazing, worth defending. Not to save, but to nurture and to cherish and to celebrate. Not to save, but to cheer and to acknowledge that. One of the ways to do that is by getting to go to space and seeing it and experiencing it and coming back and then sharing it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This is who we are. This is where we're from, and this is why it matters.
I'm so excited for you.
Thank you.
It's so crazy.
Thank you.
It's all coming full circle. And what an interesting way to have it happen through an NFT. That's nuts.
It's the future.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Wow.
Yeah, I got big nods to Space Plus NFT and Uplift Aerospace for putting it all together, and Josh Haynes and Emily Higgins.
Did you feel like you were being punked? Like, I just feel like...
That's a good question, because when when Josh called to let me know, I was with Kanal Sood, who was with the UN and New York City, and we were in the lobby of the Marriott. Josh is calling me and telling me this, and it's not really landing for me. I'm not getting what he's saying. Like, I'm not like...
What's the words? What did he say?
He said, okay, so, there was one astronaut to be selected, and Ruben Salinas got that seat. Okay, he's like, that said, what we have decided is that we're going to create our first commercial crew, and we are now working to send all 5 of you to space as the Space Plus 5. And I'm like, what? Like, yeah, flexibility is important in life. And nonetheless, like, I was gunning for that one seat, and then I had no idea that this other opportunity was going to show up. It wasn't until the next day, when Josh had arrived in New York City, and I saw him in person, and I could see his eyes, and I could see the words come from his lips, I said, holy Moses.
This is happening.
I'm going to space. And that's what Kanal said right then. He's like, Mike, you're going to space.
Yeah.
And he was right.
Is that the main question you're getting from all these interviews you're doing? Why space? What's
main question?
What's your most frequent?
I'd say the most frequent question is, am I nervous?
Okay, that one I was going to ask you, but I figured your answer would be no.
I'm not at all.
Yeah. See, I already knew the answer.
Yeah.
I knew it. Because, this is like your dream, and I'm sure that you understand the risk, and it doesn't matter.
That's right.
You have to go.
Yeah. Why did Steve Irwin do what he did?
Do you have kids?
Yes.
And?
Yes, and
how did they feel?
They're very excited for me.
What is this like mental preparation like? Break down like what exactly that's like? some of the exercises maybe? Is it visualization? Is it just talk therapy? You know, what's going on?
So you and I are different stages in our human development, okay? And as I grew, our brains form, they come together, all the components start to work together, and all of a sudden this flow starts to happen that is significantly different than how it was when I was in my 20s or even my 30s. And then the thinking and my relationship to my experiences and how I came here and what I went through to get here changes. I once, when I was younger, felt as a victim, or that it was so difficult growing up, and that I felt it was unfair in some ways. And then working through that stuff, that's the work. Doing that work, because if we don't do that work and then we go to space, well, we're bringing that with us. And that's human work. And another thing is that affects team and family dynamics. So when I become a better person, even in becoming an astronaut, it makes the people's lives better in my life. My family's life, my friends' life, the people I work with. And then think about the dynamic of working on a closed team like a crew. Like for instance, you saw the Inspiration 4, the Countdown series on Netflix, and they went to Mount Rainier together. And that was so that they experienced those difficult moments together, because that's when we really show up. It is so easy to be nice and friendly when everything is going great, and then suddenly something goes wrong, and then somebody just loses it, and it probably has nothing to do with what's going on. It's something that we haven't dealt with, excuse me, from when we were growing up. We all go through something. Yeah. I've met people that are like, I feel bad I didn't go through anything. And I'm like, I'm so happy for you. Like, don't feel bad that if you didn't have a tragedy or an injury or a problem or some sort of real obstacle growing up, awesome. That's great. I'm not wishing that for somebody. However, for myself, where I got to with that is that I became the person I am today because of those challenges.
Right.
So that means that no matter what happened to me, if I gave that up, I wouldn't be who I am today.
Right.
And I'm not willing to make that deal.
Absolutely.
So I've been in Florida for almost a week, but it has just been incredible, the amount of networking opportunities and people that I didn't expect to meet and was able to interview for my channel. So I'll be editing a lot over the next few weeks even, and I hope that you really enjoy the content that I got while I was here. So if you want to support Ellie in Space, please make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. That is free, and you can consider checking out my Patreon. You can sign up for as little as $1 a month so that I can continue to make awesome content like this, because now this is my full-time job for you to be your space reporter.